All right, Roger D. Star here, and yeah, I'm gonna finally talk about the new Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man: No Way Home. Really, this late? Before I start, there are a few things I want to mention. Sorry, I haven't made a video in quite a while. Ever since that last video I made, particularly for a good reason. But also the reason why I've been, haven't been doing any activity on YouTube lately is because I'm preparing for a video, a big project that I'm doing for one major video that I'm doing, and I'm also preparing for anime that's coming up this year. Last year was pretty good for me, so now I'm doing this year's anime, and I already have a trailer already set up and everything. But like I said, things have been backing up lately. Some of the people that I work with are currently right now busy with other things that they're doing right now, including personal things. So that's also one of the major reasons why my friend isn't here to talk about Spider-Man, since he talked about the first two MCU Spider-Mans with me last time. He already pretty much did his own review on it on his top 10 list and talked about it in detail. So you can pretty much check that out in his letterbox. But yeah, so, yeah. Before I begin, I'm sorry if I have to repeat myself. Once again, I will go quickly over for the Spider-Man movies, the MCU Spider-Man movies. Okay, so Spider-Man Homecoming, I thought was okay, nothing special. I really didn't think too much of it as a Spider-Man movie. It's mostly just an MCU movie with Spider-Man in it. Nothing much other than that. Though every time I watch the movie, the more and more I like it more, I start to appreciate it more. So, yeah. And with Spider-Man Far From Home, with that movie, I feel is like the best MCU movie. It felt like Peter was very intelligent in that movie. He felt like Peter Parker and Spider-Man that we've all cared about in the comics and most TV shows, his intelligence, the way he thinks. And also, while I did think that, Mysterio was a cool villain. The problem that I had with him was that they kept him from his original design, which honestly, you have to be close to the comic book, but I felt that they could have changed it a little bit because his helmet still looks like a stupid fishbowl, so, I found that freaking hilarious. But, yeah, so yeah, like I said, I thought this was my favorite movie, and now we get to Spider-Man No Way Home. And if you remember from my last video, I decided to not go see this in theaters because of big reasons. However, I do want to say I technically did count it that I technically didn't go see it in theaters. Well, technically I went to a theater to go see the movie and did pay for a ticket, but I feel I went during a time where now nobody gives a shit about this movie anymore. Everyone's already seen it. Everyone's just like, and there was like nobody in the theater at all when I went to go see this movie. So, I'm happy for that. Basically not dealing in. If you want to know in more detail of why I didn't want to go see it in the theaters in the first place, check out my last video on it. But yeah, so when it comes to this, you're probably expecting my opinion would be pretty much the same as everyone else. Everyone's praising this movie. Everyone's calling it the best Spider-Man movie ever. Yes, even better than Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It's somehow better than that movie. But can there really be one asshole out there who basically it could not get into it as much anyone else? Oh my gosh! I'm that asshole! I'm the asshole today! Okay, I guess I deserve to tell you all about that. I thought that the movie was okay. Yes, I think that Spider-Man No Way Home, the movie that everybody's praising, that has like a freaking 95, I think, on Rotten Tomatoes. Everyone's going crazy for this movie, calling it the best Spider-Man movie of all time. And I legit thought it was just an okay film. Like, I am not even kidding. Like, to be fair, okay, I am not the biggest Spider-Man fan when it comes to comic books, but I have watched a bunch of the shows. I have watched every single movie before the MCU. The Sam Raimi films I enjoy, and I only enjoyed the very first Amazing Spider-Man from Mark Webb, and not really a second. The second one sucks. But, like I said, I love Spider-Man. I love him as a character. I think he's really awesome as a character. But like I said, the feeling of Spider-Man, the understanding, the pain, and all this great things about his character, all the villains that he fights, and the fact that I thought this movie was okay. Okay, so I'll go into much detail, but yeah. So if you've already seen the trailers, and honestly, yeah, this is going to be a spoiler-free review. No, actually, what did I just say? I mean, this is going to be a spoiler review because, nobody cares about this movie anymore. Everyone's already seen it already, so what's even the point? So, yeah. The movie is basically about where the last movie left off. Mysterio reveals Spider-Man's identity to the world after the Daily Bugle returned J. Jonah Jameson, basically showing the video. And yeah, Spider-Man's identity is finally revealed to the entire world. And of course, he doesn't take it as much as he takes it really seriously. And of course, they bleeped out the swear that he put out in like every Spider-Man movie somehow ends with a gosh damn. In the MCU, the last two movies ended with a swear going on, but then they just bleeped it out and stuff. I'm just like, okay. It's like, okay. And so yeah, basically the movie continues, and now Spider-Man is running away from basically everybody. He's basically running away from the security guards. He's basically running away from police, the FBI. He's in hiding right now that his secret's finally revealed. And now that his secret's finally revealed, his friends he gets arrested, and people question like what he did to Mysterio, even though what happened in the last movie, he didn't commit the crime. Mysterio basically framed him. And of course his friends get involved, including his girlfriend MJ. And this kind of turns into a bad turning point for Peter Parker, who now is trying to go into college, which eventually he becomes actual Spider-Man and not high school Peter Parker and stuff. But yeah, so he gets through all that. He basically, tries to deal with it, but it seems like everything keeps going wrong. MJ and his friend Ned are basically can't go into they can't all go into the same college because of the controversy of if Spider-Man's evil or good. It's kind of this backwards thing where people think he's a good guy, people think he's a bad guy. It's just this crazy things that happen in the movie. And eventually, of course, he gets the lawyer, which, of course, is Matthew Murdock. I'm just like, oh, yeah, finally, he's finally part of the MCU. It was also crazy. And to be fair, one thing, I did see Hawkeye before seeing this episode, so I already knew that Kingpin was part of the MCU, so it wasn't too shocking that he was going to be part of the MCU too, but it's so awesome that he is. And he does nothing in the movie, but I'll get back to that later. So then, he just talks to Peter as his lawyer and stuff, and he catches a ball, and that's it. He just catches one ball, and then, someone throwing the ball out the window because, like I said, people think that either Spider-Man is a good or bad guy, but it's just like this crazy thing that's going on. But then, of course, he gets help from Doctor Strange. In the trailers, he basically tries to make a spell where people forget that he's Peter Parker's Spider-Man. However, something goes wrong with the spell, and then all of a sudden, every single villain from every previous Spider-Man movie, from Doc Ock, from the Green Goblin, from Electro, from the Lizard Man, and even the Sandman. I'm just like, all of these villains from previous generations of Spider-Man, from previous movies of Spider-Man, all coming together, even being the same actors, which is really fucking awesome. But like I said, all these things goes on. Now he has to fight these bad guys. Now he, has to deal with so many things, and like I said, if I say any more, maybe this is still a spoiler to everyone, so I'm just going to leave it at that. So yeah, Spider-Man has to take down a bunch of these villains, while also maybe getting help in the way. Okay, so now I get into just basically talking about what are the things that I like about this movie, and what are the things I do not like about this movie. Alright, so like I said, my opinion of this film may be different from other people's opinion of the film, which like I said, most people are just praising this film, but like I said, this is how it's supposed to be. I'm just like one of the few people out there who just can't get into it as much as everyone else, but that's the sad truth. But okay, there are positives. For one, I do like the inclusion of the villains. All of them don't just stay for one line. All of them get equal screen time, and I love that they try to have better conclusions that they did in their actual own films in the series. The previous films of Sam Raimi to Mark Webb, I actually felt like they actually get real conclusions instead of not, BS conclusions that they had last time, which is really awesome. I like some of the smart-ass scenes in the movie. You see, there's a scene in the movie where Doctor Strange has to fight Spider-Man in this kind of, kind of mystical battle. They go into like this kind of dimensional world, which is really cool the way it is. It's kind of the effects are really cool in it, even though they looked really cheap effects. But then when you see if you saw in the trailer, he punches like Spider-Man's inner soul or something, and Peter's just trapped and floating everywhere, and then I'm just like, oh my gosh, what's going on, what's happened to me? And then you see Doc trying to get the piece of the spell, because he locked the spell from getting out, creating a paradox and stuff, which supposedly involves the multiverse. But then, for some odd reason, Spider-Man, even out of his body, can still move his hands, like even his arms. And Doctor Strange is wondering what on earth is going on. It's like, but possibly that's his spider sense. So his spider sense is weirdly strong in this movie. And yeah, like I said, that scene was pretty funny and cool. I like the relationship that Peter has with a bunch of people around him. His friend Ned it's really awesome. And MJ, I feel like their chemistry is really good in this movie. Though I do feel like, their chemistry is very standard. It kind of came out of nowhere in the second movie. But I do feel like they're a real couple in this movie. They do feel really legit. I also like a lot about like I said, the battles. The battles are actually really cool. I also like the talks that he has with, his Aunt May. And the one thing, though, of course, there is one issue that I do have, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Like going in, like I said, when going into this film, I thought it was going to start pretty dumb, but it actually started out pretty good. It started out pretty good, even though it was kind of a previously on Spider-Man kind of thing. But honestly, the way it started and the way it made into the middle, it was starting out really good. But then when we get to the climax, there's something about it that doesn't feel earned. But like I said, the film was good through most of what it was doing. But then when something around the finale happens and I started looking back at a lot of the things from previously, it started to like crumble a little bit. It started to like really go down to the point where I can't really say this is a good movie, but I can't say it's bad either. But there's just a lot of problems that go on. But like I said, another thing that I do like, which like I said is a spoiler, I like that all three Spider-Mans are in this movie, and it is so amazing. Like, both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield still are pretty awesome playing as this character, and you learn about what happened after their movies, and it's pretty, like, so awesome. Just seeing Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire talking to each other. I could just listen to these guys talk for hours and hours, because like the way they conversate with each other, how they have different parts of the world, talking about like what happened to them, talking about like all they've been through, all the different things. Like, you want to hear them talk for a while, because they're just super interesting. They're just amazing Spider-Mans in general, and when they work together, they fucking really work together in the climax. Even though it doesn't start out that great, though, but it's still pretty damn good and still pretty cool just to see all these Spider-Mans come together for this one epic finale. And I don't know, it just brings this whole smile to my face just seeing them all. I mean, to be fair to a lot of audiences too. Alright, so now let's just get to the negatives. And this is where either you agree with me or you don't. So where do I begin? Oh my gosh. Like I said, you either agree with me or don't, but this is my honest opinion on how I feel when it comes to the negative parts. So the one major thing about it is that, you see, after, of course, people find out that he's Spider-Man, there's like this, kind of love and hate for Spider-Man and stuff. And while I do like J. Jonah Jameson, you know, talking shit to Spider-Man because, you know, that's basically his character and stuff, there are other people who I could have sworn, why on earth would they talk shit about Spider-Man? Like this random janitor who just wasn't even a character in the fucking last any of the movies. So I'm just like, this janitor brother's like, you know, and the school is either like loving Spider-Man, but then the outside world either likes or hates him, you know. And even to the, like I said, there's like a lot of controversial people. Like the moment that like there's this small scene where Spider-Man tries to get MJ out of the crowd and stuff, and there's this one individual where, you know, they feel like, hey, Spider-Man, and then it's like, hey, Spider-Man attacked me, Spider-Man attacked me, Spider-Man attacked me. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like honestly, I feel this is really legit. This is how most people will react to something as, you know, conspiracy and stuff. You know, do they think Spider-Man is good? Do they think that he's innocent, or do they think that he did was wrong? You know, that's actually feels really, really good. It doesn't feel fake, like, oh, you know, everyone's going to be on Spider-Man's side. No, it feels legit. Like, it feels like everyone has their own opinion on how they feel about this, you know, and it really does good. But then, this is where the opinions start to get pretty off for me. For example, when this was during the time when Peter was just about to go to college and he was just about to end high school. So the fact that this controversial thing came out about him, it's just like, it affects his chances with colleges. When I'm just like, what? Just like, I understand they don't want to deal with, you know, the whole controversy thing, but you have fucking Spider-Man in your college. I'm just like, what the? It's like, how does this make any sense in a standing point? Like, I'm sorry, a fucking college, a professional school, not wanting Spider-Man to be part of their... Do you know how much fucking publicity you can get for that shit? Even for, like, the high-tech school that all of them wanted to go to together. Like, all of them got rejected. I'm just like, but they weren't even involved. Oh my gosh, it just felt like it was so stupid. It felt so fucking stupid. I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe people say like, oh no, there's a reason why. I mean, no, that's what schools do. And you might think, yeah, well, you know, that's what they did. But then at the same time, they kind of reversed the whole thing, because you see, at first I was just wondering, so how are they going to do this thing with Doctor Strange, you know, trying to erase everyone's memories of thinking that Peter Parker is Spider-Man? And here's the thing. They made Peter dumb in this. They made him dumb again. I'm just like, basically, instead of him just saying, hey, can you try to add... Instead of him just saying, hey, and actually someone made an Instagram about this, you know, before the trailer came out. Couldn't he have just said, hey, can you pretty much erase Mysterio's words of me saying that I'm Spider-Man, like delete the photo and just basically erase that? And Doctor Strange would have been like, okay, that would have been simpler and we would have had this whole shit happen. But no, he just had to say, I want people to forget that I'm Spider-Man. Yeah, just the one basic thing, but not realizing that his friends and family could forget he's fucking Spider-Man. He didn't think this through. He just basically just went with the first thing just because, yes, I understand he's panicking and he's scared and shit, but he just walked all the way to fucking Mysterio. No, I'm sorry, Mysterio, Doctor Strange. I'm kind of like getting through the, like, you know, he went to Doctor Strange fucking mansion and he couldn't just think about what he was going to say before talking to him. It was so ridiculous. And even him, Doctor Strange, when he releases a spell and then like contains it and stuff because the spell went wrong and stuff, I'm just like, yeah, Peter, you know, you couldn't do it, you know, even after you asked for a second chance and stuff. I'm just like, wait, what do you mean second chance? I'm just like, you do realize you can call the school to reconsider, right? And let me tell you, when I looked up that that's actually a real thing, I'm just like, wow. I did not know that. I'm personally talking about me. Like, I did not know that shit for fucking years. I'm just like, so even if they give you a fucking letter, you can basically call the school and try to ask if you can reconsider. maybe it won't go well at the same time. Maybe you'll get, but you can still get a second chance. Gosh, damn it. It's like, so you're saying that he could have just fixed this whole situation with just a fucking phone call? I'm just like, even Strange just basically kicked him out of his mansion after just revealing that shit. I'm just like, oh my gosh, how dumb is Peter in this movie? He was so smart in the last movie. Why? He was so smart in the last movie, but man, this shit went through, like, you know, that kind of really, I didn't like that at all. I'm just like, man. And even then, when she basically, guess what? When Doc Ock is basically attacking the street where, you know, supposedly the headmistress of, you know, the school basically sees Peter saving her. I'm just like, okay, I'll reconsider you. You know, yeah, you can join our school. I'm just like, thank you for saving me. I'm just like, it was that easy. It was that easy. I'm just like, okay, then what was the point of the whole sad scene then? I'm just like, what was the point of that? You could have cut that scene and nothing would have changed. It just felt, things started to feel pointless in this movie, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, please tell me this doesn't get any worse. And so then, of course, we find out that, you know, Doc Ock, the Sandman, the Lizard Man, you know, Electro, they're all from different worlds, like I said, the previous generations, because now we start to realize that the multiverse actually exists. So yes, the previous movies are now technically canon to the MCU, which is pretty freaking awesome. But like, so Doctor Strange is like talking to Peter. I'm just like, you know, we can't help them. They all ended their lives this way. So out of freaking nowhere, after Peter learns about their stories and what happened to them in their movies, he decides that, oh, you know what? I'm gonna help you guys, you know, so you don't have to die. I'm just like, you're helping out villains. You're helping villains because the Peter Parkers and Spider-Mans of their worlds were trying to defeat them or kill them. Are you kidding me? It's like, they're super villains. I'm just like, and you want to help them? I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm just like, this is the stupidest shit in the world. I'm just like, oh my gosh. I don't want to mention that controversial comic book from, you know, Spider-Man, but like, you know, this is almost as bad. I haven't read the comic, but like, this feels like one more day. I'm just like, one more day or something where fucking Spider-Man makes a deal with a demon. Shit. I'm just like, gosh damn. Like, this is almost, I mean, I guess maybe that's the character what they were going for, because that's what they pretty much proposed what they were going for, you know, with this interpretation of Spider-Man. But man, was this shit, like that shit. And another, okay, so yeah, I don't want to get lost track, but like, so another negative thing I didn't like is that the effects in the movie, I didn't think personally they were that bad, but yeah, most of it kind of sucked. But then we get to the scene where Doctor Strange is fighting Spider-Man. Guess who wins? Spider-Man. I'm just like, Spider-Man won the fight against Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange can control space and fucking time. And I understand, maybe in the MCU, in the comic books, he's like that, but in the MCU, he's not as powerful as he's supposed to be. But he can basically stop time. He can basically, like, whoop, like, Peter if he can get a chance of, like, 50 punches on his stomach or something like that. And you're telling me that he basically did all this crazy-ass shit and he still didn't beat Peter? I mean, he technically didn't beat him. I mean, he didn't beat the shit out of him, but he basically, like, used physics or something just to, like, wrap him with webs and just trying to keep him into this other world. I'm just like, and he stayed there for quite a while until, like, the climax of the movie. So yeah, that happens. So and then another scene in particular is like, so yeah, we find out that eventually, you know, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield gets to the world. The way they get to this, the way they are brought into this universe, into the MCU, I have to say is the most fucking stupidest thing in the world. Like, like we find like out of nowhere we find, I mean, yes, they mention it once, just once. We find out that Ned is magical just like Doctor Strange, and all he has to do is just like basically hold Doctor Strange rings and just be like, find Peter Parker, find Peter Parker. I'm just like, and that's all he did. He didn't really do anything else. And then then the other Spider-Man comes in, and it's just a bunch of silliness. They don't come in like the most epic way possible. They come in the most stupidest way. I'm just like, the way they introduced them, it just felt like out of nowhere. It kind of felt stupid, but I'm just like, I mean, to be fair, I can understand crowds were just like going crazy, just being like, oh my god, Andrew Garfield, like Tobey Maguire, they're at the freaking MCU, it's so awesome and stuff. You know what? Good for them. Good for that crowd, you know. Good for that crowd that they love that stuff. But, like, honestly, it was cool just to see them. But at the same time, it was kind of just, like, ridiculous. Like, the way they came in. It just kind of felt, like, a little too bland. I feel like there could have been much more of an epic entrance towards that. But they just went for comedy, which I get it. And then we get to the freaking climax of the film, which, you know, honestly is not that bad of a climax. Which is not that bad of a climax and stuff, but yeah, is not that bad of a climax and stuff. And to be fair, the climax of how they fight off all the villains, fighting off the Green Goblin, is pretty damn cool and stuff. Until we get to one moment, and before we get to that one moment, I want to talk about something else. I forgot to mention it. I was going to talk about that first before talking about the finale. Let me get to this first. So, here's the thing. I understand this is going to upset some people, but so just in context, so Spider-Man's helping out all the villains in, you know, in an apartment building, an apartment complex and stuff. Like Buddy's apartment and stuff. So they're fixing up these gadgets. They're trying to turn Electro from not being Electro anymore. And then they actually do help Doc Ock, where, you know, his arms, he can finally control his arms again. And they tried to help the Green Goblin, but then we find out the Green Goblin still has, and I can tell you, William Dafoe is fucking amazing as Green Goblin. We discover that he still has the half personality, you know, the personality of the Green Goblin, where, you know, he's still evil and stuff. And so basically he betrays Peter and everyone else. Some of them just betray Peter as well because they still want their powers and everything, because they don't want their powers taken away from them. And they just want to go back to their worlds, you know, and then they turn evil. And of course, Electro starts to turn like the actual comic book, which is really freaking cool. And then Peter Parker's like fighting Green Goblin, going crazy and stuff. And his mother, his Aunt May, tries to help him out and stuff. And then Green Goblin released one bomb and this explosion happens. But surprisingly, both, Peter and, his auntie is okay, until we find out that his auntie didn't survive. And so, yeah, we see that in this world, Aunt May is dead. So Uncle Ben and both Aunt May are going to be dead in this universe. And I'm just like, I understand possibly people crying in this scene. And she even says the dedicated lines, the legit line from the comic book, with great power must also come with great responsibility. And I understand that scene must have been such a tearjerker for everyone else. But I didn't feel shit for her. I'm so sorry. I didn't feel anything. I think the problem is because in every interpretation of Aunt May, like, I've never really gotten to whole detail, but I particularly don't like this Aunt May in this version of the MCU. Like, I loved Aunt May in the Sam Raimi movies because there was just so much dedication to her character, and I did like Aunt May in the PS4 video game. Even there she had a sacrifice and felt really earned. And yeah, the Aunt May from Into the Spider-Verse, even though it was a short amount of time, she was a freaking badass in that one. This Aunt May, I didn't feel like a motherly figure to Peter. Like, think about it. What's her character? Her character is that she's a motherly figure to Spider-Man and Peter Parker. She raised him. She basically raised her as her own son. She teaches him lessons. She teaches him how, you have to confront things, how being a hero can be hard, and all these speeches that she put in both the comic books, the animated show, and even so much of a lot of the movies from previous movies. There was some dedication to her. Not too much Amazing Spider-Man, but in the Sam Raimi movies, there was just something so great about this character that she felt strong. She was a strong character. But in the MCU, I don't know, I feel like they really destroyed her character and something like that. In the first movie, she didn't really give a shit about him. In the second movie, she started caring about him. She started worrying about him. And the third movie, she tried to make choices into helping people. But like I said, all of that it was almost like there was not enough time. There was not enough there should have been at least 25-minute scenes with her just talking to Peter or something, or just at least 5 minutes telling, in each movie there should have been 5 minutes each time of telling her how she feels about the whole situation, how he cares about it. It's just her death didn't feel earned. Her death didn't feel earned whatsoever compared to Uncle Ben, and I think that's the major problem. She isn't Uncle Ben. That was the major problem. I understand. In the previous movies, we already sick and tired of seeing Uncle Ben, but here's the thing. That is literally the most important element in Spider-Man becoming Spider-Man. I'm just I understand people are going to complain about it, but at the same time, you had to have that scene. You had to have it in order for it to work, because we can't grasp of why Peter wanted to be Spider-Man to begin with. Her death cannot fill that void. It didn't feel right. Even her saying the really freaking line, I guess, was kind of cool, but like I said, it didn't feel earned. Nothing felt earned. Like I said, I didn't like the MCU, Aunt May. She felt very bland to me. There was not too much to her. She just started getting to it, but even after she fucking died, there was still not much to her. I'm sorry, I didn't feel too much about it. But, like I said, so yeah. I think we should get to the climax. And like I said, the climax is very awesome. The climax is really, really good. The fighting's going on, them talking about stuff, which is really funny. Especially with this one conversation, I'm just wait, you don't worry, I know the Avengers. Oh, you know the Avengers? What are those? Are those are you in a band? I'm just oh my gosh, it's almost kind of funny, but almost depressing, because their Avengers never came there to begin with. They never got that far, or they never existed to begin with. It's just it's just this whole hodgepodge of things. But they stop the bad guys, and then we get to the climax. And to be fair, we start to realize why this movie's called No Way Home. So Doctor Strange is holding off the multiverse, which is weird because Loki is canon. So how on earth is this multiverse opening up and involving Doctor Strange, even though it started with Loki? Yeah, it makes no sense, but I guess because since they thought that audiences never watched those shows, so they decided to try to create another secondary plot of the multiverse just to fill the void, just in case people didn't see the show. But yeah, Doctor Strange can't stop the people from coming, and of course you do see Easter egg and cameos of other Spider-Man villains, and stuff. And I forgot to mention, basically how the spell worked with Doctor Strange is for anyone who knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Something that my friend mentioned to me, which, Electro didn't know that Peter Parker was Spider-Man in Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I saw that film twice. I'm just oh yeah, I think that's really true. So yeah, his character was just added in just to be added in. But yeah, going back to what I was saying. So he tries to lock the multiverse, but he can't because of the whole spell thing. So guess what? Peter asks Doctor Strange the most desperate thing in the world, which I understand why they did that, just because he wanted to save everyone and everyone he cared about. To be fair, it's a big sacrifice, but it's still fucking stupid. He basically tells, I want everybody to forget who Peter Parker was. I'm just like, really? So you couldn't just make a spell where you still couldn't think like, look, I understand where there's an intense situation, but maybe I thought this through ever since, getting through this fight and stuff, but I think this is the best thing. Why don't you make sure that Mysterio's words about me being Spider-Man is never viewed to the public eye? There! I'm just like, you could have just done that and it would have been over! You could have saved everyone without sacrificing your existence. Oh, it's so stupid. But look, to be fair, he did it to save the people he loved. So yeah, after that happened, everyone goes back to where they were. The multiverse doesn't happen and stuff. Until Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness. Yeah. So getting to that, and then we get to the ending where Peter goes and starts to realize that he doesn't exist to anyone, especially his school. So guess what? You find out in the end credits when he's basically in just a simple apartment building because of loss of Aunt May. Even Buddy doesn't know who he is anymore, which makes no sense because there should be records. There's still, even if Doctor Strange brainwashed everyone, don't you think there would still be photo records of Peter Parker existing as Aunt May's nephew and stuff? I mean, heck, even when Peter Parker was in her graveyard and Buddy came in, I'm just like, why on earth did he keep the secret? Couldn't he have just been like, he just basically like, did you know her? When they're conversing, I'm just like, so did you know her? Yeah, she was a friend of mine who helped me a long time ago. I'm just like, so you could have just said to him, I mean, to be fair, they don't even know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, so why couldn't you just say, no, she was my aunt. She didn't talk about me much. Oh, I see. That's sad. It would have been the same thing, but whatever. He still wanted to keep the secret, so continuing on. He sees MJ, he sees his friend Ned, they don't recognize him, but surprisingly, she still technically, weirdly still has the memory of him. She still technically is trying to fight and trying to know that she still somehow still knows him. Even when he walks away from the store, it felt like she still knows him and stuff, but when he sees the scar on her head, she's basically not wanting to hurt her anymore. Originally, she was going to tell her, and originally find her, but I guess he decides that, I guess I can't tell her anymore. Maybe one day. And yeah, obviously we're going to get more Spider-Man movies. It's already been announced and stuff, but yeah. And then, of course, the movie ends where Spider-Man is basically moving to a new apartment, and he basically has a GED book. Just in 2-second scene, he has a GED book, which basically means that all the records of him being in high school never happened, so that really sucks. But guess what? But then, of course, we get this cool-ass final shot of him, like, spiders swinging everywhere, and we also see the hockey arena where in the Hawkeye series there was the final climax. So I don't know if this took place during the middle of the whole thing or not. Maybe not. But Spider-Man's swinging around, and he has a brand new costume because all the Tony Stark costumes were destroyed. So he has a brand new, his own legit costume, which is actually kind of a mixture of both the Tobey Maguire costume and the Andrew Garfield costume, which is really, really awesome. I felt that was really awesome. And yeah. And of course we get the post-credit scenes and we see that Venom, Tom Hardy's Venom basically is just drunk off his ass, and he was in Hawaii the whole time, never being near New York City. And while he was planning to go to New York City, of course everyone just goes back to their world, so he basically disappears from existence, though he leaves a little bit of the Venom goo, and yeah, it basically moves, so looks like Venom is still gonna exist in this freaking universe. So what's gonna happen? Are they gonna do the whole symbiote story or something like that? Who knows? But yeah, those are my negatives when it comes to Spider-Man, and also talking about the finale and everything, how I felt about it. And so, like I said, that's kind of the reason why I think this film is okay. Like I said, it could have been so good, but this movie was like an entire fan service movie. But to be fair, even for fan service movies, this one was done at least well. It was done well. But like I said, I think the problem is, I think after finally seeing all three MCU movies, this is going to sound weird, but yes, technically, while Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is still my favorite Spider-Man movie, when it comes to live action Spider-Man, I know this might be a little bit, different from most people's opinions, but honestly, I think the Tobey Maguire films hold up more than the gosh damn Home films. I mean, yeah, the Sam Raimi films are corny and stuff, but no matter how corny they are, you still remember so much from those films. You still remember the epicness, even for the third film, for how bad it is. You still remember so many things from that film too. I feel like with the Home series, as time goes on, I feel like people are just going to forget about these movies. Like, they're just MCU films. You can't watch them individually. You have to watch these films with the MCU in mind, and I feel like that's not good. That's not like really good at all. At least you can watch, in my opinion, at least you can watch the first Iron Man film without knowing any of the other MCU films. You can watch like Guardians of the Galaxy without knowing about the MCU, really. No, seriously. I feel like you could just watch that film without knowing anything about the MCU and you can still fucking enjoy that film. But I feel with the Home Trilogy, you're not going to. Like, you're not going to like the Home Trilogy if you don't, like, unless you've seen, like, the previous MCU films, you're not going to enjoy the Home movies. You're not going to enjoy, Homecoming, Far From Home, or, No Way Home, unless you've seen, the previous any of the MCU films. And that's kind of sad because, like I said, the Sam Raimi films are still very memorable. Even after years go by, they're still memorable movies. However, with the Home films, I can see these films not really standing the test of time. While they're have least problems, that also kind of makes them the most boring films. Like I said, I didn't really get into these films to begin with. My favorite still is Far From Home, but that's literally the only film where I felt Peter was really smart in that movie. I felt the tragedy in some way of him dealing with his problems and revealing his secrets and stuff. And in this film, there is that. I'd have to say I did feel bad about what happened, but at the same time didn't. Because like I said, I didn't really think too much about Aunt May, but all the struggle that he was going through, all the pain he was going through, to be fair, I like that. But like I said, I feel like Tom Holland is a really awesome Spider-Man. I feel like Tobey Maguire is still a good Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield's still a really good Spider-Man. But like I said, if you want to tell me one of my favorite live-action Spider-Mans, it's still the Tobey Maguire film. It's still the Sam Raimi movies. Like, I know it's nostalgia blindness, maybe, but I honestly don't think so. Like I said, maybe in a couple of years. I want to know if people still remember the lines or still remember these films, the Home movies, years later. And hopefully that happens. So yeah, that's my opinion on Spider-Man No Way Home. So yeah, Roger D. Starr signing out, and I'll see you next time.